Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video we will be installing Windows 2000 Windows 2000 Professional Service Pack 4. That's a tongue twister in some cases. So what we're going to do here, this is actually a part of the NT kernel. Right? So there's actually no need for a pre-installation of the MS-DOS system and everything. This actually goes pretty much straight through. So this is actually going to be a much easier installation for most people. Windows 2000 came out in December of 1999, released to the full public in February in 2000. In 2000. From there, it pretty much lived a very healthy life all the way up until, I believe, 2010, where it got the EOL finally. So it had a good, 10 years of lifespan. And during its lifespan, it had four major service pack updates, as well as NT does. I mean, not NT, as well as 2000 does actually have internet-based, capabilities. Also, there was four different flavors of Windows 2000, which you had, Windows 2000 Professional, Server, Advanced Server, and Data Center. I will be actually doing a video on the server and advanced server during my server series, but right now we're just going to handle Pro today and just kind of go back into memory lane to see what everything was all about. So first things first, we're going to create a new virtual machine, and like always we just click typical. Okay, so we're going to browse for an install disk, and I'm going to click on Windows 2000. Now everything you see inside here, the Service Pack 4 and the fixes and patches that we have in here will be available. Sometimes they're required, sometimes they're not. I don't believe they're going to be required for this. So we should be good to go. So virtual name, we're going to keep it at Windows 2000 Professional. I like to actually just add if it has a Service Pack, so SP4, to let me know that this is the latest and greatest. Well, not the latest and greatest, but the latest and greatest for the time. As always, leave the disk size as is. If you want, you can double it if you actually plan on using it or testing it out with certain things. But for the most part, I usually leave it as default. And then again, store virtual disk as single file. Again, due to be so small, it's not a big issue. Now, we went ahead and gave everything else a bridge network. And for memory, we gave everybody else at least a 512. I do believe it can go up to a gig, so if you want to try that, you can. But for this video, I really don't want it to, get memory problems if possible. So we're going ahead and click Finish. And we're going to power on the virtual machine. Now this virtual installation is more geared towards the Windows XP style install. Now I know it's weird because XP came out after this, but for depending on which viewers we have here, you probably actually maybe not remember most of these operating systems before XP, which we did have a lot. I'm actually kind of amazed at how many I've done. I've done Windows 1, 1.04, 2.03, 2.11, 3, 3.1, 3.11, and then I did the workgroup special as well with 3.11. Then you had 95, 98, NT 3.5, NT 4, ME. I mean, there was a lot, between them. I mean, it's been going on since what, 1985, I believe. So it makes kind of sense. And then you have the two DOS up there as well. So we're greeted with the welcome screen. So we're going to press enter to go ahead and start. Now to proceed, it's press F8 for the user agreement. And very simply for here, we can either go ahead and create the partition if we want to, or we can just go ahead and let Windows handle it. I usually like to create the partition so that I know Windows doesn't have a problem. Sometimes it gets in a hiccup where it has a hard time formatting it and then goes there. So if we just create it and then we hit enter, then it's going to ask you, what do you want to use, NTFS or FAT? Pretty much I keep with NTFS because that's the beginning of everything. Also, if you ever want to upgrade this, so they'll say from 2000 to actually XP, you can't use FAT, so you'd have to reinstall everything. So a little bit of a tip. So now it's going to go ahead and format our 16 gig drive that I put together. And now it's going to copy all the files over. Again, this is very, very similar to the Windows XP, well, technically the NT kernel. Right, this is actually the update to Windows NT, 4.0, when they decided to do two styles of kernels back then. They had the MS-DOS 9X kernel, and then they had the new NT kernel. And that's when you saw Windows NT, I believe 3.5, or technically Windows NT 3, and then 3.5, and so on, where they built everything from that. So this is actually a part of that era. Hence the reason why it has a very different install. And I kind of like that too when it says down at the bottom there, NT, built on NT technology. So it definitely lets you know that this is a different style of kernel than the MS-DOS or the 95 and 98 series. And then we just go on from there. And now we have a nice little, technically GUI background. They've put color to it. They actually have, I look at it this way as in a wallpaper. A very simple, nice installation for their GUI. Definitely different from the Windows, 95, 98, and MT series. And obviously different from, Windows 2 and 1 and 3.0. Ironically, I actually know a few people that still are running Windows 2000 Server in 2019, 2020. And it's pretty crazy to actually think their whole entire company and everything is still basing itself off of this. But Microsoft actually did give updates right up until their last month, before the end of life. So they kept this regularly updated, pretty much from 1999, technically 2000 if you want to be technical with the February release, all the way up until July when they decided in July 2010 where they decided that there's no more updates for it. And even still in 2019, they actually have had a few patches when you've actually found out what the example, the WannaCry virus that came out. They actually did offer a patch for XP and 2000 at that time. Both of them have no longer been in use and no longer in service with service packs, and yet still, or even any updates. I even know XP, they cut the internet from it completely, so you couldn't even get on the internet with it. So it actually is pretty neat. Also, I'll be doing a video in the future about Windows XP Service Pack 4, which is an unauthorized service pack that kind of patch Windows XP with more security features like they had with 7 at the time. So they pretty much made the security, patches that they gave out to 7 that can work on XP, obviously, and just convert them for XP. Also, it gave you believe a new browser at the time. No, actually, I believe it updated your browser, your Internet Explorer browser to the latest, so you were still able to go and use the internet. As well as, like I said, you're able to download Chrome and Firefox and still use it. They also did have other browsers like Dolphin browser that you're able to download that didn't really have a version, or you can lie about the version so you can keep going. because that's how they stopped you from using the internet. They just realized that, hey, the version is too old, we're not going to bother supporting it, so they just stopped sending data to it. So you're technically your XP machine still connected to the internet if you have a wire connected to it, or any kind of internet connection. It just doesn't know how to broadcast it through the browsers anymore. So a little fun fact, I guess. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just do the setup here. So here we can go ahead and change our time zones, but normally it just sets itself as English. So I have everything ready to go for that. I'm going to type in your name and your organization. Again, you don't need to have an organization. And then now for the product key. So I got to find where my product key is. And hopefully it works still. I actually haven't used this key in a while, and I've actually gotten a few other versions of this type of Windows 2000. So let's hope that what I have here is actually going to work properly, or it's going to tell me a big fat goose egg, which would kind of suck because that means I got to redo this whole video all over again. Oh, looks like it worked out pretty well. So we're going to go ahead and name the computer. I always like to call it what it is. So Win 2K, and then Win 2K VM, and then the admin password. This is the admin password we are creating. I am on the Eastern Coast. And it might be 2 in the afternoon. I really don't know. And we're going to go ahead with typical settings for our network. And I don't have it connected to a domain, so we're going to leave that as default. But you can, if you really want to put this onto a domain, if you're going to install this in a real life environment, or even in this virtual environment, if your computer is connected to a domain, you can connect it to it as long as you bridge it. Or you can actually build a server in virtual and go ahead and actually do domain connects, which I think I might do in the future too, as another video, where I might install like an old server like Windows Server 2000 and then just start networking ME and all the other stuff to it and see if they all connect. I also believe I have Server 2003 somewhere hidden, and I might do a video with that too, where I'll do a Server 2003 and create a domain and have all a bunch of these networked VMs connect to it. Just a fun little thing I kind of get interested in with. Try to test the limits without actually breaking everything. And then the nice thing is, if I do break it, well, it ain't that big of a deal. Just go ahead and either recreate a new one, go back to a screenshot, depending on however I set everything up. And like always, this is all in real time. So this is about as close as we're going to get to installing a Windows 2000 Pro Edition on your computer if you were doing this back in, 2000. But even still, you can see how much different it is compared to the ME installation, because they came out about the same exact time. With Windows ME in 2000, ME was still based off of the 9X kernel, as well as this one's on the NT. And just between the graphical interfaces between the two of them, and even the install, this install is actually moving much faster than the Windows ME. because you got to install with Windows ME, you got to make sure you have MS-DOS or another version of Windows installed before you can go ahead and upgrade it or do what you have to do. With the NT kernel was nice because you just kind of put the CD in or floppy, whatever you had at the time, and you go from there. A lot of the NT kernels were were CD because they were 500 plus megs, most of them. So I really don't see myself installing 30, 35 floppy drives. I have though. I believe my Windows 95 originally was that, where it had 19 or 20 disks. So we'll go ahead and hit OK, and VMware will go ahead and dismount the CD for us. And then now we're going to jump right into Windows 2000 Service Pack 4. So if you have software, if you want to mess around with anything, or just see what it was like to use Windows 2000 Professional, you can go ahead and download this virtual, follow along the video. All the stuff's in the links in the description below, like always. And from there, I also have linked a couple websites where you can go to that actually where companies actually built virtuals of Linux OSs or other specialized OSs. Not too many of them for Windows because, like I said, Microsoft gets a little finicky with this type of stuff. This older stuff here, they're not too worried about. The newer stuff, they are. All right. Now this screen right here is either the quick access screen. So if you're going to have multiple people use the system here, you're going to want to use the first one where users must enter a username and password at the beginning of the computer. But because I'm the only one that's going to ever use this virtual, mainly I'm going to go ahead and just have it auto log me on. Back in the day, this was actually something that a lot of companies or people used to get mad about. When you use advanced server or servers, you had to type it in. But with professional, most companies would let you, save this. Now, as a system admin, a lot of times they would actually block you from even doing this. But again, if you're going to work for a business, you would never have noticed that that screen even came up anyway. All right, so I'm going to close out of this. Now, as you can see here, let me go ahead and raise the volume a little bit because I want to be able to actually hear. So when you go over here, you can actually notice that these icons are very similar to Windows ME. Again, they're built at the same time. The structure is pretty much the same, but they end up ditching all this, even this whole setup here, once they went over to Whistler and then they moved on from there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to install VMware Tools. Now, as you can see here, I'll go ahead and show you what's going to happen if you try to run it now. You get this error saying we have to see Microsoft for this update. All right. So I guess we're done, and we're just all beat in SOL at the moment, which this is where that patch comes in where I told you about. So we're going to go to VM, Removable Devices, and go to Settings. And that ISO folder, so under Fixes and Patches, right click and open. And as you can see, one of these files in here, I believe it's this one, is the file we're looking for. And no matter how many of these videos I keep doing, it's always so weird to be able to actually see how each one works. Like you can't right click on certain things, everything automatically auto runs in the older ones. Every version of Windows I've used, except for, like, say, I think 95 and 98, have all been different in some magical way where it wasn't the same before. As now, when we get to XP and above, they kept everything the same, how everything gets ran, how you can do auto runs and everything. So once this is all done and installed, right, which I believe that's the only patch I have. Well, I also have this one, but I think that was a part of the one. Yeah, that was actually a part of the Windows 2000 ISO fix. All right, so we're going to go ahead and reboot. And now we should be able to install VMware Tools. Or I'm going to get another error telling me that I'm SOL again, and then I got to go ahead and download some more patches and updates. Now, the irony is we can't actually even get to the internet yet on this because we haven't installed VMware Tools. So, so it's going to take a few minutes. What it's doing right now is it's actually doing its updates in the background. Once it's all done doing its updates and fixing the, everything, it will go ahead and reboot for you. And then once it reboots, we will be able to log in, and then we're going to go from there to do the install of VMware Tools. Okay, so we go ahead and we heard our sounds. That's a nice thing. So now we're going to go ahead and try to reinstall VMware Tools again. And huzzah! And like always, this is mainly just installing mouse drivers and video drivers so that everything can kind of work. If you have any kind of RAID set up in here too, it will go ahead and install them in the background. But for the most part, it just kind of just sticks to a couple, basic drivers. All right, and one more reboot. I like how the get started always keeps changing. So let's see if it actually worked. And huzzah, we now have a full screen. So let's go here, display. And there's our Windows 2000. Now let's see if we can actually connect. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can actually connect to the internet. I believe it will go ahead and work now. No, I don't want to set up an email account. Go ahead. Open up this really, really old version of Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer, you are so old. And huzzah, we are at Google. So now the next thing I want to test out Windows updates. Will it actually work? Oh, really? Well, back then, with this type of updates, it really wasn't an update. It was actually just a catalog. We didn't actually have the update until I believe XP when it came out. I don't think anything else had it beforehand. So what this actually did was it just pretty much brought you straight up to the Windows catalog, which let's see if I can find that. Oop. And here it is. Does not work. Not surprised. So there you have it. We installed Windows 2000 Professional Service Pack 4. I went ahead and showed you how to install the patch updates so that we're able to install VMware Tools. And then we also want to see that the internet actually does work on here. Not very well, but it does actually work. I'm pretty sure as well that the like Outlook Express would still work in here and everything, because they never really actually patched anything with that as far as I can remember. So yeah, if you like the video, like it, subscribe. I post videos as often as I possibly can about virtual. If you have any requests of any kind of operating systems you want to see on a virtual, let me know in the comments. You can email me. If you have any questions on virtual, you can go ahead and leave in the comments, email me, send me a message saying, hey, I would like you to help me out with this. And yeah, so hopefully this was helpful to somebody. Hopefully it brought some, kind of people back to the nostalgic era of all this. And like always, I hope everybody has a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Later, guys.